Hello, Saracena Braves. This is Mrs. Corey, and today, let me zoom out, we're working with subtracting linear expressions. And by the end of this lesson, you should be able to use the properties of operations to subtract linear expressions and identify equivalent expressions. So one thing I need to point out is we've done adding linear expressions. So now subtracting, in order to subtract, all we do is take the subtraction problem and rewrite it as an addition problem. So we do the additive inverse. So there are two ways of doing it. We can either use models or use the additive inverse and add it vertically. So let's look, our first example is just using models. Example 1, find negative 3x minus 2 minus the quantity of 4x. So using models, they set up the first part. You have negative 3x, and then they have two negative 1s. And since there are no positive x tiles to remove, they added 4 zero pairs of x tiles. And then they removed the 4 positive x tiles. So now, in order to do a minus 3x, because we're trying to subtract 4x, that's why they added 4 positives and 4 negatives. Now they can remove those 4 positives, and at that point, we have a negative 7x, okay? Now, another way you can look at it is, if we rewrote it as an addition problem, then I could say, okay, I got a negative 3x plus a negative 2 plus a negative 4x here. And so at that point, we don't even need to think about adding 4 positive tiles in order to remove them. You're just basically going to have 4 negative tiles. So we rewrite this as an addition. Then it would be plus a negative 4x. Then when we added it, it'd be a negative 7x minus 2. And I know with the tiles, sometimes it can get a little confusing. So let's just do it. Here's another way that you can do it, if that's too confusing. Example 2, 4x plus 6 minus the quantity of, and that we always say the quantity of when we have these parentheses like this, the quantity of a negative 7x plus 1. So we're going to do the additive inverse. In order to subtract this whole quantity, it's basically saying we're going to add the opposite. So remember, when we would subtract, we would add the opposite. So if I'm going to add the opposite of a negative 7x is a positive 7x. The opposite of a positive 1 is a negative 1. And it's almost like we've distributed this negative to both values inside the parentheses. Now we can arrange like terms in columns. So we have 4x plus 6 plus the 7x minus 1, because we did the additive inverse. And now we can add. So 6 plus a negative 1 gives us 5. 4x plus 7x is 11x. So our answer is 11x plus 5. So now, whether you would prefer to do models or add it with vertical columns like this and do the additive inverse, you can. So you can choose which you would rather do. But for today's lesson or assignment, you have 5 problems for you to try. Make sure that you you can either write it on paper or you can edit within the PDF document. If you have any questions or comments, post them on Google Classroom, and I'll respond as soon as possible. Again, have a great day. Bye-bye.